89 teams to go on my road to predict all 131 teams this college football offseason. And now we're moving on to the Boston College Eagles. And this is the team that last year dealt with injury problems to two of their better players, one at the quarterback position, one at the wide receiver position. And we'll talk more about them later. But this is the team that really, in my opinion, has yet to kind of find themselves under Jeff Hafley. This could be the year, though, that Boston College is able to take that next step in the ACC. So is 2022 the year where Boston College under Jeff Hafley starts to find their wings and the Eagle can soar? Or is this an Eagles team that may, again, what if they deal with more injury problems this year, may miss out on the bowl game again in 2022? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. I'm predicting all 131 teams this college football offseason. And that means I'm doing your favorite team. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, so you guys know when that video gets uploaded. And to Boston College fans out there, but anyone that watches my videos in general, you guys are going to know a lot more about your favorite team than me. So if you feel like I missed something, you want to add something, anything of the sort, please leave that in the comment section down below, and I'll be happy to read with what you guys have to say. Boston College 2022. Let's get into it. My 10th ranked team in the ACC coming in to the 2022 college football season. They were a fairly solid team last year, even though they did deal with some injury problems. They were 6-6 last year, 2-6 in conference. Not the conference record you'd necessarily like to see, but they made a bowl game. They were bowl eligible nonetheless. They were going to play the East Carolina Pirates, but that game ended up getting canceled. So, missed out on a bowl game technically last year for Boston College. They definitely had their struggles, and the injuries on the offensive side definitely showed at the end of the year. They had the worst offense in the ACC in terms of yards per game, with only around 350 yards per game, 24.7 points per game by this offense as well. Not great, and not where Boston College should be with the talent that is on this offense. However, when you look at the defensive side of the ball, that's what won them some games. They had the fourth best defense in the ACC in terms of yards per game, with 343.8 yards per game and around 22 points per game as well. So this Boston College defense did some really, really nice things last year. Again, the offense dealt with some injuries to two of their better players that we'll mention here in a little bit. But head coach Jeff Hafley figures to, help Boston College. He wants to see this team take the next step, as I think a lot of fans for Boston College would like to see. However, quarterback for most of the season last year, Dennis Grosel, is out, 1,216 yards, had 6 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and never really was a phenomenal fit for this Boston College team. Also, running back Travis Levy is gone, was the 4th leading rusher on this team, had 4 touchdowns for the team last year as well. At the wide receiver end, you're losing C.J. Lewis, who only had around 201 yards last season. Trey Berry, the tight end, who was the 2nd leading receiver last year with 362 yards and 4 touchdowns, also gone as well. And a plethora of offensive linemen gone, most notably Zion Johnson, but you also got guys like Vrabel, Lindstrom, as well as some others there as well. On the defensive side, Brandon Barlow is gone. That's a guy that had 42 tackles a season ago. Isaiah Graham Mobley is gone, had 52 tackles a season ago. Jordan Sparaccio, Hugh Davis. And then in the defensive backs, Brandon Sebastian, Jamean Muse, and Mike Palmer. A couple guys there that are gone off this team as well. But do not fret, because there's still a lot of talent coming back for this team. Again, starting quarterback Phil Jurkovec had some injury problems last year, and after since being talked about as kind of an NFL prospect, has never really found it and never really gotten it going. This could be the year that Phil Jurkovec has a breakout season, and that's not going to surprise me in the slightest bit if that happens. However, he's got to stay healthy, and he's got to form chemistry with his wide receivers. However, did get playing time last year, 914 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions, with around 100 fewer pass attempts than Dennis Grosel last year, and he only had 300 less yards. So that just tells you what kind of talent that Phil Jurkovec really is. Your best 2 running backs coming back, Pat Garwell, who was a 1,000-yard rusher last year, had 1,045 yards and 7 touchdowns. He's coming back, as well as Alex Sinkfield, the former West Virginia transfer, 350 yards and 2 touchdowns for this team a season ago. And speaking of rushing, Phil Jurkovic on the ground, 322 yards and 5 touchdowns. So definitely can be a dual threat option at the quarterback position. You return your leading wide receiver, Zay Flowers. Had some injuries here and there last year, but all in all was that leading receiver with around 746 yards and 5 touchdowns for this team as well. Otherwise, guys like Jalen Gill and Jaden Williams are coming back for this team at the tight end position. You also got George Takis, Joey Luchetti there as well. George Takis is a transfer coming into this team. Luchetti coming back for this team figures to be that number 2 option at the tight end position. In terms of your defensive players, Marcus Valdez, Cam Horsley, Chibueze Onwuka, couple guys coming back for this defense that were fairly good for this team last year. Cam Arnold, Vinny DePalma, couple pretty solid linebackers back for this team as well. And when you look at the defensive backs, Jaden Woodby, Josh DeBerry, each of them had 2 interceptions last year that led the team. And then Elijah Jones, who led the team with 5 passes defended, coming back for this team as well. So definitely some talent back on this defensive side of the ball, and that's what you like to see from a defense that was pretty good a season ago. That was pretty good. Let's take a look at this Boston College schedule. And, there are some interesting non-conference games, most notably one way towards the end of the year against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. You got to go on the road to win that one. Flat out, going to be a hard game to win. Notre Dame, in my opinion, definitely the more talented team. And they're definitely a team that can contend for a college football playoff spot. Other non-conference games against the likes of Maine, UConn, don't really interest me. However, that game at the beginning of the year against Rutgers, I think that's going to be one of the more interesting kind of non-conference games that people are not going to pay that much attention to, right? That's one of the more interesting non-conference games that people are like, Rutgers, Boston College, where are both of the... I don't even know where Rutgers is, right? It's going to be like one of those kinds of games. I think it can be a very, very fun game, though. And I think people should tune into that game because I know I will be in week 1. Should be a very, very interesting and telling game to watch for both of those programs there as well. When you look at conference play, you got road games against Virginia Tech, Florida State, Wake Forest, and NC State, and home games against Syracuse, Duke, Clemson, and the Louisville Cardinals. So, kind of doing a more deep dive on the schedule here. There are just some flat-out hard games to win. However, your draw from the other division for Boston College isn't terribly difficult by all means. I mean, on the road at Wake Forest, yeah, Virginia Tech and Duke are the 2 crossover games. My apologies. But on the road against Virginia Tech, again, that's a team that might end up be in a rebuilding year under new head coach Brent Pry. And then at home against Duke, that's a team that, again, I just don't see doing that great in 2022 and definitely could have a couple rebuilding years under their belt. But the rest of the conference schedule, minus the game at home against Syracuse. Now, Syracuse could prove to be a fairly good team this year. I think getting that 6th win, though, for Syracuse is going to be hard. If you want to check out my Syracuse preview, go ahead. Dino Babers may very well have to make a bowl game to save his head coaching job, and that could be the game that Syracuse needs in order to make the bowl game. Although with the talent that Boston College has playing at home, favor the Eagles in that one. But the rest of the conference slate, oh boy, pretty interesting. I mean, on the road against NC State, on the road against Wake Forest, those are 2 of the better teams in the conference, or 2 of the better teams that are projected to be in the conference next year. Clemson figures to be a team that, although they didn't really have the offensive rhythm last year, they figure to be back and figure to be moving in 2022. Louisville, that's another interesting team to watch. You got to go on the road to play Florida State there as well. So definitely a lot of interesting games in this conference slate for Boston College. And although you have Jurkovic, you have Garwell, you have Flowers, you have a lot of your leading tacklers back as well, this is definitely going to be a schedule that might prove to be challenging for this Boston College team to get to 6 wins. I mean, there's a lot of challenging games on this schedule. Now, I don't do game-by-game predictions. I do a more percentage-based outlook. Tell me predict a team's record. So if the game is in red, you're probably not going to win the game. If the game is in orange, you're still probably not going to win the game. But hey, it is college football, and upsets can happen. Yellow are your 50-50 or high upset potential games. Games in yellow-green are games that you should win, but watch out for teams on the other side of the ball. And games in green, I just have you winning. So 2 games in green, Maine, UConn, and then Duke, probably see you winning that one there as well. However, most of the schedule is in orange and yellow, going on the road to play against Florida State. You could make the case for that game to be in yellow. However, my apologies, excuse me. However, I am slightly more leaning towards Florida State. It is really like a 61-39, maybe a true 60-40 game. So right on that barrier. If you want to put that game in yellow, I'm not going to argue with you. I have the game in orange because I think going on the road, a Florida State team that I do think is going to get better this season, definitely going to be a challenge for Boston College on the road against Virginia Tech. Again, that's a game that Blacksburg, one of the tougher places to play. However, Virginia Tech may be in some rebuilding phases. So we'll kind of see what happens there. That home game against Rutgers, though, I think is going to be very, very telling. If Boston College comes out and wins that game and wins that game comfortably, this may prove to be a 7 or 8 win team. But when you look at the rest of the schedule, I mean, besides the Florida State game, which is like borderline orange-yellow, if I had a color in between those two, that's what that game would be highlighted as. There are quite a few games in orange. I mean, Clemson, Wake Forest, NC State, and Notre Dame. I think those are all going to be games where Boston College surely is not going to be the favorite, and games where I feel like Boston College is just going to struggle and have a tough time winning those football games. However, they're capable of pulling off an upset this year. If Jurkovec can play like the NFL prospect that he was once considered to be, if Zay Flowers can get that way as well, maybe have a 1,000-yard receiving season, I think he can do it. If Garwell can prove to be yet another 1,000-yard rusher again in 2022, I see no reason why this Boston College team can't take steps forward. With the talent that's on this team, this is a bowl game team, and I have them going 6-6. It's my first bowl game team that I predicted in the ACC. But when you look at this Boston College team, more specifically when you look at this Boston College schedule, finding 6 wins on the schedule, it's not impossible, but it is fairly tough. They're probably going to have to win one of the games in orange. On the road against Florida State would probably be your best bet right there. Again, that game's borderline orange-yellow. However, at home against Clemson, maybe you pull the upset and beat the Tigers at home. Like, this is going to be a very interesting year for Boston College, but I do think it all hinges on that home game against Rutgers. I am leaning towards the way of Rutgers. Maybe Boston College needing some time to get things going. However, Boston College can win that game. I'm favoring Rutgers just slightly, but I do think Boston College can win the game. They're going to have to find some wins that maybe you're not going to be able to have. But although 6 wins on the schedule, very, very possible. And I think for the talent that's on this Boston College team, I think that they get there and I think they can go ahead, make a bowl game. I don't know about taking that next step because, again, with the way the schedule plays out, but I see Boston College going 6-6 in 2022. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed, please like, comment, subscribe, anything you can to help support the channel. It does mean a lot to me. And remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.